Hey guys, welcome to Advanced Kids, where we're all about teaching children the heart of God, the Word of God, and the character of God. I hope that you've had an absolutely amazing week. Last week we came together and we learned all about an awesome man named Joshua in our brand new series and part 4 of God's Freedom Timeline. We learn all about elected by God, the people that God placed in the Old Testament to take care of His people after Moses. Joshua was absolutely amazing. He helped to lead the Israelites into freedom and through every single challenge that they went through in that season of their lives. It was absolutely amazing learning with every single one of you. But this week, we're going to dive even more into some of the amazing people that God elected to take care of His people in freedom. So, Joshua led the Israelites into freedom. They finally found their promised land. But I don't know why, for some reason, maybe it's because Joshua didn't or because God didn't call for it, but Joshua didn't have a right-hand man like he was to Moses. He didn't have somebody to take over for him to lead the Israelites. So without leadership, they perished again. They complained against God. They started worshiping false idols. They started sinning and doing all the things that God had told them not to do. And because of that, they were at the mercy of their enemies. They were trapped. They were taken by the king. The king forced them to work harder than they had been worked before, even worse than when they were slaves in Egypt. And so they crumbled. They cried out to God and they asked if He would save them again. God had pity on His people like He always did, and so He decided to send them a leader, which they called a judge, to help them in this time of need to set them free again. This judge, his name was Ehud. He was an absolutely amazing man who conquered their enemies like it was nothing. It was crazy because he was left-handed, which back in the Bible was seen as a weakness. If you weren't right-handed, then you couldn't be a leader because for some reason it was weak to be left-handed. But that was the advantage that he actually used to set the Israelites free and kill the king. You see, when people had an audience with the king back in those days, they would always check your left side to make sure that you didn't have any weapons, because you could pull out a sword with your right hand and kill the king. But because Ehud was left-handed, he hid his weapons on his right side, which meant that they didn't check there. So he could take a weapon in and he conquered the king and he set the Israelites free. Isn't that absolutely amazing that what people saw as his disadvantage actually became the advantage that helped him to set God's people free? Ehud was an amazing leader and he helped them to figure out what was right and wrong from then on. So, why don't we jump in and watch this really cool video that will help us to understand a little bit more about the story of the Israelites disobeying God and Ehud coming to rescue them.
I told them not to worship the Baals or those other gods. But my people didn't listen. And because we rejected the one true God, we got conquered by our enemies, the Ammonites, Amalekites, and the Moabites. We served under the despicable king Eglon of Moab, and he demanded horrific amounts of tribute. So the plan was, I would be the one to present our tribute to the terrible king Eglon. Usually, the guards would check for weapons on the left side of any visitors, because most people were right-handed and would reach for their weapon on the left. Got it? But since I was left-handed, I hid my blade on my right side, which they didn't bother to check. I waited for my shot when the guards took away most of the tribute, took out my blade, and lunged towards the evil Eglon. In one swift move, I ended his terror and escaped into the night. And that's how I, by the grace of God, despite my being different from most people, rescued my people from terrible tyranny. And that's the life of the judge named Ehud.
your story. Who wants to be an awesome judge and leader like Ehud? I do. Hey, what we're going to do now is we're going to jump into a really cool verse that's going to help you remember how cool this story was. Are you ready to repeat after me? All right, this is how it goes. We're going to go like this. Judges 3 verse 15 goes like this. But when the Israelites cried out to the Lord for help, he sent a man named Ehud, son of Gera, a left-handed man. Isn't that amazing? They cried out for help and God sent a man to save them. Make sure that you remember that verse so that you know where to look in the Bible for the story of Ehud. Thank you so much for listening and learning with me today. I absolutely enjoyed teaching you about the first judge, Ehud, in our series, Elected by God, part of our series, God's Freedom Timeline. I hope that you go away from this week with something new to add to your power of knowledge, because remember, knowledge is power, and knowing something more about God helps us to become stronger believers. Make sure that you come back next week to learn more with us about the judges that God elected in the Bible. We're going to learn about a really awesome woman next week who helped to lead the Israelites into their freedom, just like Ehud did. Have an absolutely amazing week, and we'll see you next time for another episode of Advanced Kids.